on the thunder. Well, now you got it. You see that? It says United States Marshal. Take a good look at him, Mike, because that's how you're going to end up. The Cowboys are finished. You understand me? I see a red sash. I kill a man wearing it. So run, you cur. Run! Tell all the other curs the law's coming. You tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me! You called...
Well, how do you beat that? How's that for an opening? Welcome, everybody, to Saturday Morning Western Roundup. Today we're going to be discussing the 1993 Tombstone, which is a great action film, great modern Western, starring Kurt Russell. It was directed by George Cosmatos, and Kevin Jarre who they say directed it. But according to Kurt Russell in a 2006 True West magazine interview, he said that Kevin Jarre was the original director. He's also the writer, the screenwriter. He was fired, and they brought Cosmatos in as well afterwards, basically just to keep things running smooth. But in fact, according to Kurt Russell, he directed most of this movie, which I find very interesting because it's so well done. It's such a great film. I wonder why he hasn't directed more stuff, if that was true. But he says it is, so who am I to deny it? This movie, there's been so many different versions of the gunfight at OK Corral, but this one is the closest to the way it really happened, according to historians. And what makes this movie cool to me is that this movie doesn't end with the OK Corral. It really begins with the OK Corral. It's these events that start into motion when Wyatt and his brothers and Doc Holliday end up in Tombstone, Arizona. The Holidays are basically, not the Holidays, the Earps have basically they want to settle there. Virgil is the town sheriff, and Wyatt comes after leaving and cleaning up Dodge City in Kansas. And he arrives there, and he basically just wants to settle down. He looks at the place, and he says, hey, this is a great place to earn some cash. We could retire out here and all that kind of stuff. But, like with every good Western, whether it be true or not, things conspire against it, and all conflict has to be resolved with violence. That's one of the truisms of Westerns, and this one ramps up. It's just a really, really excellent film with an excellent cast. The basic outline for this thing is a former lawman Wyatt Earp and his two brothers and friend Doc Holliday settle in the town of Tombstone in order to lead a profitable and peaceful life, but soon come into conflict with the Cowboys, a band of outlaws led by the Clanton brothers. This retelling of the Earp and Clanton feud also follows up the gunfight at the OK Corral with a look at the bloody consequences of the showdown. So that's the basic outline of that story. This movie's got a great cast. Let's see, where are we? Here we go. Obviously, at the top we have Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp, and then you have Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday. And this is Val Kilmer's movie. This is probably the greatest thing he's ever been in, because he just steals this movie out from under everybody. His characterizations, his lines, there's so many quotable things from the Doc Holliday character in this movie. It's almost like the outlaw Josie Wales, where almost every other piece of dialogue is quotable. It's that good. We have Sam Elliott, of course, the ever-present modern-day cowboy. He's awesome. Bill Paxton, the late Bill Paxton, late Powers Booth, Michael Biehn, Charlton Heston has a small role in this too. Great character actor Stephen Lang is in it. Jason Priestley, Thomas Hayden Church. One of the weaker points, Dana Delaney. Not that she's a bad actress, but her character seems almost a little wooden in this film. That's my only beef about it. It's those sequences tend to slow down the plot of this movie, and I wish there was less of that, because the action scenes and the dynamic narrative that goes on in this story is so great, and then it comes to a screeching halt when she gets on the screen. But that's a small little beef. Let's see who else. That's the main cast is in here. We also have our Star Trek connection too, because DeForest Kelley played in was in the John Sturges gunfight at the OK Corral, and then of course there's the third season Star Trek episode where they're at the OK Corral. So we have a little our usual Star Trek connection there as well. So this is really a great film. I recommend it highly. There's not a lot of great modern westerns. Once you get out of I can't think of any really great westerns in the 80s. I mean, Silverado is more of a pastiche than a great western. This one is a good one. And then when we get into the early 2000s, we get Open Range, which is amazing. Oh, I take that back. The 80s, the one great western in the 80s was Lonesome Dove. And I believe that was 1989 or so. So we close out the 80s with a great western. But they get fewer and far in between. There just doesn't seem. I guess Hollywood just doesn't feel like the western the audience today, this technologically raised audience, does not grasp or want to see westerns. But westerns and horror are two of my all-time favorite genres, whether to read books or watch movies. So I love them. I just love the simplicity of the western, and conversely the complexity of it. You can tell great stories with great people without having to hide the fact that you like a lot of modern technological movies, they hide a bad story behind a lot of flashy effects. Whereas in a western, you just set your camera down in Monument Valley with a good script and off you go. It's great. So let's see who's here today. Fearless Freep. I've liked most of the OK Corral movies, the 57 version, Burt Lancaster, Kirk Douglas, Earl Hallman, and DeForest Kelley. That's a great one. It's a John Sturges, and I just love Sturges's films. Statistical Zero is here. Good morning. Finally got to make another live show. Excellent. Johnny Rando. Johnny Rando, that sounds like you should be in this movie. Like Johnny Ringo. Ike is such a worm. Yeah, he is. Stephen Lang plays great worms, I guess you could say. And according to IMDb, I think it was Cosmatos who said that he was drunk through most of this film. So some of those drunk scenes, I guess, weren't really acting. Hi, Graham in the group. Happy New Year to all of you, Roundup gunfighters. All right. Happy New Year to you, Rob. Morning, Graham. Good morning, chat. Love this movie. Russell and Kilmer are just fantastic. Yeah, the sequence where we see Wyatt Earp for the first time exert his will upon anybody. Historically, we know who Wyatt Earp is, but we've never seen him do anything until the sequence where he goes into the bar, and there's a loudmouth who's running a card game played by Billy Bob Thornton. And then Wyatt goes up and just hands him his hat, so to speak, and it's great. It's a great scene. You gonna draw that smoke wagon or just sit there and bleed? Another great quote. Good morning, Marty. Best Western of the 90s. I agree. Oops. Good morning, George. My favorite Western of the 90s is Unforgiven, but this is a good one. Well, Unforgiven is an amazing Western, too. We'll be touching on that one down the road as well. That is an amazing movie. Good morning, Danny. Glad you could make it to our Western Roundup today. Bill Dunleavy says good morning. After Clint Eastwood Westerns, my favorite Western. And where is Jerry Kissel? I don't know. Well, I think he's in another time zone, so it might be early for him. Guess I'm going to have to rewatch this movie. I didn't care for it when I saw it in theaters. Couldn't get past the face makeup. Interesting. Face makeup. I wonder. Type in there what you mean by that. Couldn't get past the face makeup. Did you think it was too pancakey? That the camera, that it wasn't blended good enough? Not quite sure what that means. Purple Valkyrie, good morning. Damn it, George Travels, you're right. I forgot about that one. Haha. What about thinks it's a great movie? I think he's right. And Dan is definitely right. It's Val Kilmer's best performance ever. Although Val was good in that great Michael Mann film. The one with the, what's that one with the, Robert De Niro, where it's a heist film. One of you guys will remember it because it's too early in the morning. Still working on my coffee. Heat. I did it myself. Heat. See, I just took a sip of coffee and it came to me. Michael Mann's Heat. I thought Val Kilmer was really good in that too. Even Robert Mitchum in a narrator cameo. Evidently, Mitchum was supposed to be in the movie. He was supposed to play the role of the rancher Hooker, Henry Hooker, that Charlton Heston played. But he fell off a horse early on in the shooting and injured himself. So they kept him on just to do the beginning and ending narration. Good morning, Kenneth. Little promo motion here. George Travel says, chat, if you haven't picked up the Chenoo on IGG, I highly recommend it. Got my digital edition already and saw my physical book shipped. I'm psyched to receive it in the mail. Yeah, guys, if you haven't backed it, you really should, because I'm so proud of that book. When you see it, it's one of the best looking comics. When you read it, you'll decide whether you think the writing is great. But it's one of the best looking comics that I have in my collection because the printing is so amazing on it. The cover, the way it came out. When you hold it in your hand and feel it, I think you're going to think that it's a pretty amazing book. So go over to Indiegogo and check that out. Let's see. Spectre of the Gun. Yeah, I was drawing a blank on the name of the third season Star Trek episode. That's one of my favorites. The budget limitations so work in that episode, Spectre of the Gun. That's where the Enterprise encounters the Malkotians, and the instrument of their death is going to be pulled from their own history. And so the Malkotians scan Kirk's frontier-like mind, because he was born in Iowa, and his parents or his family were probably Westerners or something, and so they pulled out the gunfight at the OK Corrals as the means of their death, but because he didn't actually live there, his memory is is very limited. And so the false fronts on the buildings, there's no sides and stuff, really give it a surreal feeling. It's a really excellent third season episode, and there's so few of them, but that's a great one. Rob says Pale Rider was okay. Yeah, it was okay, but it was better when it was Shane. It's the same movie. All right, let's see here. What about Clint Eastwood Pale Rider from the 80s and Unforgiven? Possibly the last of the great westerns. Well, I just addressed Pale Rider as Shane. Yes, Unforgiven is one of the great last great westerns, but not the last great one. I think the last great one was on Netflix a couple of years ago called Godless. That is a fantastic western. It's if you had to sum it up, I would say it's Shane meets the Wild Bunch. So mash those two up together. It's really good. Glenn Fleming, Happy New Year from England, Graham. Oh, Happy New Year to you. Aaron Sarg says he's our Huckleberry. I guess that's supposed to mean, I was looking that up, what that phrase meant. It meant basically, I'm the man for the job. Steve Lowenthal is another fan of Unforgiven. I have to put that on the docket. A lot of people like it, and I do too. Again, Clint Eastwood just kills that role. Morgan Freeman and Gene Hackman. I love Gene Hackman in that movie. He's scary and he's funny, and I love when he's facing down Eastwood, and he just can't understand what's happening to him. I'm building a house. As if this can't be happening. I'm building a house. I don't know about Red Sun, but 3:10 to Yuma, if you're talking about the original Glenn Ford one, is a fantastic movie. If you're talking about the Russell Crowe one, that's a horrible movie. I don't believe any one of them knew how to ride a horse. They're bouncing around, You watch the old guys, like Gary Cooper and John Wayne when they're riding a horse. Now, Wayne was a stuntman before he got into acting, and when they're riding on a horse, like all out, they barely move on it. The horse is rolling because they use their legs as shock absorbers. So the head stays and the body stays even. Meanwhile, while the horse is going, the rider is riding straight on. But in 3:10 to Yuma, the modern version, you see the guys bouncing all over the place. That's just one of many pitfalls of that film. I won't even get into it. Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, a masterpiece, says James. Yeah, I'm going to hit that one, definitely. I got to do a Sergio Leone film. That and A Fistful of Dollars, the first one, I really like a lot. Great to see you too, Man of War, Neighbor of the Beast. Okay, little hellos there, back and forth. That ending with Doc and Wyatt gets me every time. Yeah, it's touching. It's I love themes of loyalty and friendship, particularly in westerns, but in any genre. But that's a very touching scene. There's also a line in there where this guy says he's going to help Wyatt, and the dude next to him says, basically you could get killed if you do that. And he says, well, Wyatt's my friend. And the guy says, well, I have lots of friends. And Doc says, I don't. What a great line. Happy New Year, Graham. Great movie that Costner tried to derail. Yeah, well, he was, at the same time, he came out with his movie, Wyatt Earp. which had one of the worst posters I've ever seen. You know, it's like one of those things where Stan Lee would have yelled at him because it's like almost a back view of the main character and he's kind of shooting off into the sky, you know. No, this way. He's like this, shooting up like this. Really boring poster. George chiming in a heat, but I got it. I got it before you. I nailed it with that sip of coffee. James being sarcastic about real genius. He was good in The Doors. That is true. He really made me believe he was Jim Morrison. It's kind of a really downer movie, but he is great in it. Any thoughts on a Q&A stream after people receive the Shinu? Talk about the book and the campaign. Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. I definitely want to get on and talk about it and hear people talk about it. And then also give you the lowdown on the next campaign and get into detail about that, you know. I think that's a great idea. Spock, this is completely painless. Scotty, after taking a shot of whiskey, you should have warned me sooner. Yeah, that's a great scene in that Star Trek episode. You know, Scotty takes the shot of whiskey. He says, "For the pain," and he slugs it down. Spock goes, "But this is painless." You should have told me sooner, Mr. Spock. Good stuff. What I love about Tombstone is that any segment is fun to watch and it is very hard to turn off. It is always the best thing on. Yeah, it's one of those movies like The Godfather where you can just turn the TV on, it happens to be on, and you can catch bits of it and really enjoy it. Oh, here we go. Vaughn is expanding on his thoughts. Yes, too pancakey. First movie, it was obvious to me men had face makeup. Russell's cheeks were too shiny. I'll have to rewatch that with that in mind and see what I think. Jesus agrees that Godless is a great one. You have Jeff Daniels playing the bad guy in that. It's like, wow, he's really good. Godless is brilliant, and Michelle Dockery was wonderful in it. Yeah. Hackman kicked ass and kicked the hell out of Richard Harris as English Bob. Yeah, I forgot about Richard Harris in Unforgiven. Richard Harris is great in that too. Michael S. Happy New Year, Graham. I got my digital copy of the Shinu. Thanks. I can't wait for the physical copy. Excellent, Michael. It's on its way. I just got a photograph from the fulfillment group, and like over 500 copies got sent out the other day, and they're going out like hotcakes. So pretty soon. Chuck E. Banks says Val Kilmer's performances.com is probably his best ever. I'm Your Huckleberry became a popular line to use after that movie came out. Agreed. Yeah, I think all of us sort of agree that this is one of his best. Ah, here we go. Bone Tomahawk was a heavy one. I couldn't watch it. So let's talk a little bit about the Kurt Russell westerns. So we have Tombstone, obviously, and he's great in that. We have Bone Tomahawk, which he is great in that. But that is a movie that hits you upside the head. It's two movies in one. It starts out as a pretty traditional Western and goes into deep horror. I mean, I was like, what the hell did I just watch? I like it, but it's not a movie I could watch again, I don't think. You know? And then he was in that god-awful Hateful Eight that Tarantino made. There's only a few movies that I've ever watched where I've turned them off, and Hateful Eight is one of them. Don't forget, folks, slap that like button like it owes you money. Man of War 665, Neighbor of the Beast is right. Do that. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do that as well. Oh, okay. Jesus reminds us that Red Sun was with Charles Bronson. I wonder what year that was. You'll have to look it up on IMDb, or if you want to put it in there, Jesus, into the chat, that'd be great. I love gory movies. I love gory horror, but Bone Tomahawk had a death that shocked me. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. I'd say give it a watch if you can deal with some gore, and that really creepy feeling that makes you cringe a little bit. I would say give it a shot because Kurt Russell's great in it. Statistical Zero says it was tough to put my finger on it first, but Hateful Eight was just about everything wrong with modern Western movies all in one shot. Yeah, for one thing, I thought I was going to like it, because Tarantino, went out of his way to film this thing in Panavision. You've got the Western vistas and all that. Those long shots of the carriage going through the snow in this wide screen was like, oh wow, this is going to be like John Ford-esque. And then the movie becomes a parlor drama, in Panavision, a parlor drama. and then the plot just goes all over the place with modern references or not references, but well, there's a certain modernism to it, which I guess Tarantino likes to do. And when he does it successfully, like he did in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's great. Even Django and Inglourious Basterds. Obviously not historically accurate, not even period accurate, but they work. This one just was a fail on so many. As Craig Zahler, who wrote and directed Bone Tomahawk, also wrote some decent Western novels, A Congregation of Jackals, among others. Oh, interesting. Cool. Are his other Westerns as, well, let me ask you this. Was the book as violent and kind of gory, freaky as the movie turned out? That'd be my question. Oh, I think I covered this one. James Allen reminded us that Fistful of Dollars for a Few Dollars More and Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is a trio. Yeah, not quite a trilogy. I mean, although Clint Eastwood sort of is the same guy, the man with no name, but it's not really quite a trilogy in that they're the same characters. But they're all good. They're all really good. Okay, let's see if we got anybody else here. Scroll back up and see if I missed anybody. I think I caught. Yep, I think we're all caught up. Okay, gang. So next Saturday, we're going to take this into a fun zone, I should say. We call this Saturday Morning Western Roundup. But one of the other staples of Saturday mornings for me growing up as a kid was watching Abbott and Costello movies. And they did a Western. It's called Ride 'em Cowboy from 1942. And it's one of their early comedies at Universal. So that means it's one of their good ones. So I think we're going to talk about that one next week. So look for it. See if you can watch it. There's some great ANC routines in that. It's a fun little story and take us off into a little bit of a different direction for next weekend. Wednesday coming up on the Storytellers. Planning on having the legendary Michael Golden on to talk about his approach to storytelling and his influence on so many young artists during his years working at Marvel and DC. So anyway, that's what we have for our upcoming shows. I will do a Shinu follow-up. That one won't be scheduled. We'll just pop on and talk, and that should do it. So you guys have a great weekend. Happy New Year to everybody, and we'll see you Wednesday night. Have a good one. Bye-bye.